Grief is such an overpowering emotion, especially after losing someone so close to you. It can take months, years, even decades to get back to normal, if that's even possible after experiencing a significant loss. This podcast was created to help you move through and release the emotions, allowing you to heal the hurt and begin living again. Listen in as I chat with medical professionals, grief workers, and people who have first-hand experience in losing a loved one, what their experience has been, and what they did to help heal themselves and those around them. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows, but I believe there is always a silver lining if you're willing to look. Welcome to the Release Podcast. Hi, welcome to another episode of Release Grief Podcast. Today I'm here with Miss Linda Henderson, and this story is I only know the outline of it, so I'm gonna let Miss Linda take it over from here. Go ahead and tell me a little bit about what your story is about today.
Thank you for having me. This has been a really wonderful opportunity. My name is Linda Henderson. My daughter, her name is Andrea, was taken in a car accident December 20th, 2011. So this past December was 12 years. She was stopped at a light preparing to turn left, and she was a passenger and the driver was her co-worker, and they were returning to work. And I can talk about that later, but the transport truck driver rear-ended them. He was texting and having an argument with his girlfriend on the phone. And so he rear-ended them, pushed them into the oncoming traffic, and the southbound vehicle then broadsided them again. So the driver and Andrea were killed instantly.
Oh my goodness.
And every day of my life since then has been devastation that I just tried to work through. It's like walking through the woods. Sometimes the sun is shining, and sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes it's not.
I love that analogy, because when you lose a child, like it hits for me. That's super personal because we lost our daughter, our 19-year-old daughter, in a freak vehicle accident, and like it's one day here, one day gone. Like they're super happy, healthy, like you're expecting to get the phone call from them that night, like normal, just like every other day, and see them, make plans with them, and all that stuff, and then it's just like boom, gone. Just
instantly,
right out of your life.
She was pregnant with her second child, and we texted and talked every single day.
Yeah.
And so we were texting. The accident happened, they said, somewhere between 12:30 and 1 around the lunch hour. And we were texting and talking. And she was telling me how she was feeling nauseated. And we just had the conversation back and forth texting that, mama daughter, like, well, just try nibbling on some crackers and, all that kind of stuff. And just like, I'm so tired too. I probably shouldn't even be at work today, and I'm just encouraging her and telling her the I love yous were all the time. Probably that morning we said I love you about 3 times, and then the messages stopped at 12:30. I don't remember whether it was my message to her. That's right. And I didn't get a response. And so, it's like, okay, well, she's busy. Come on, just relax, Linda. She is working after all, right? But then, but I mean, usually even a half an hour later, she might get back and say, sorry, can't talk now, Mom. Right.
Right.
But nothing all afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And I was at the mall. I had some last minute Christmas shopping to do. So I just proceeded with my day and carried on, all the while having that in the back of my mind, looking at my time, thinking, what's going on? The more time that went by, the more frantic in my heart I was. And then her 2-year-old son was at um, the paternal grandmothers being babysat. And then when the time came in the afternoon, 4 o'clock, that she didn't pick him up, I knew, I knew something was
Oh,
wrong.
wow.
And then I texted her husband, have you heard from Andrea today? No, I haven't. I'm kind of worried too. And then we started going down that,
So
the
nobody had let you guys know.
well, the problem was they had just purchased a house. She procrastinated. They had just purchased a brand new house in August.
Mhm.
And she didn't change her driver's license address. So when it happened, they
They
didn't,
went to the old address.
they had problems contacting family and whatnot. And then she wasn't even identified by a family member. She was identified by, she was a social worker and she worked for a group home. So the group home, mom and dad, let's say, that were in charge of it with these girls, the father identified Andrea and said, yeah, that's Andrea
Oh.
Watkins. Yeah. So when they eventually, anyway, as the day went on, it just got worse and worse. And then I came home, and by now it's like 5 o'clock. And I was just, I just can't even describe the, the emotion, the frantic feeling, shaking, the anxiety. And I said to my husband, I have to go. I can't just sit here. I have to go. Right. I mean, nobody knew anything
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, I'm going to her place of employment. Like, I'm going to her job. Maybe she got delayed there and couldn't phone or something, but I can't take this. So I proceeded to get on the highway and drive to her place of employment. And when I saw the sign for her road closed, I knew. I
Mm.
just know that big sign that said Kennefton Road closed. I knew then that, oh my goodness, something has happened. And then right after I passed that sign, my phone rang and I pulled over. I didn't have the hands free at that time. Pulled over, answered the phone, and it was my husband. He says, you have to come home. The police are here. And I knew then, because I was a nurse for 37 years. I'm like,
Yeah.
if she was in the hospital, they'd be telling me to go to the hospital. But they
Right.
want me to go home. And I knew then that she was gone. Didn't want to even let it enter my thought, but I knew in my heart.
Right.
And how I got home, I don't even know. I
Yeah.
drove home probably at incredible speeds. It
Right.
must have been, it was truly on that day, that Carrie Underwood, Jesus take the wheel, because I
Yeah.
don't remember. And I got home, and, I called the police liars. You have the wrong person. I'm her mother. I didn't identify her. Her husband did. You have the wrong person. And every day since has been trying to walk and find my new life without
Right.
her, as you know.
Oh my gosh, that is heartbreaking. And whew, man, it's making me tear up just remembering back like when we found out about our daughter. Um, and the police tried to get a hold of the mom and the dad. They went to her address, her mom's house that was on her address. She was my stepdaughter. But they went to her mom's address the next two towns over. And the mom wasn't there. She was at work. And the son, her brother was there. And he said, no, they're not here. And so then they tried to call my husband.
Mhm.
Didn't get a hold of him. He went to voicemail, or they went to voicemail with him. And they finally got a hold of the mom at her work. And then it just all started cascading down there. I mean, and it's just like, no, you're
Yeah,
lying. You're lying. Why are you playing this ridiculous joke? Like,
yeah.
it's not
It
funny.
it's
And you just
like a
immediately go to
nightmare.
that because you don't want it to be real.
No, no, it's like a nightmare, you know, um, like I wrote in my book, it used to be before this tragedy became part of my life. It used to be that, you'd listen to the news and you would hear about these things happening, and
Yeah.
it would be like, you'd grab your chest and think, oh my gosh, that's so horrible. I'm so glad that's not me. And then you pray for your children every time.
Yes.
your
Yep.
family, and you just pray it's never going to happen to you, right? And then you can't even begin to enter what they might be feeling. You can
Right.
only just touch it a little bit with knowing the love you have for your child.
Right.
But then it became my reality. And
And the devastation that happens.
and then you just deny it, like, no, this is not
Yeah.
happening. This is not
It's not
happening.
real. They're just on vacation. They're just taking a vacation. They're just gone for the weekend. They're just, at a friend's house. They're tied
To
up at
this
work.
day, I still wait for her to come in that front door,
Yeah.
you know, and she had her little 2-year-old boy, and she would come in the front door, and she was so soft spoken, and she'd come in and she'd say, "Come on, let's go see Nanny." And I hear that in my head all the time.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a sweet memory, right?
It is a sweet memory. It's painful and sweet both at the same time. And how
Yeah.
far along was she?
Uh, 3 months, I think, something like that. Just,
Okay.
not, but she was like ecstatic because they bought
They
it.
were building their family.
Life was perfect and unfolding for her, right? They bought a
Yeah.
new house in August. She had her 2-year-old little boy. They had a beautiful wedding, and the perfect story, right? And she's having her second child. I was actually supposed to go with her to the doctor when she had her ultrasound on December 28th, my birthday,
Okay.
and that didn't happen. So now my birthday comes around and it's a mix of all that. And
Yeah.
then then on my birthday, December 16th, no, 2016, on my birthday, my grandson had a car accident. And then so like the triggers in life, right?
Yes. Did he make it?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay,
But
good.
he just, they were all coming here for my birthday. And not that I really care about Christmas or that time of year, but you have family, so you just kind of roll with the
Right.
flow, right? And everyone was coming here for dinner for my birthday, and we got a phone call that all we could hear was my other daughter on the other end of the line screaming and crying. Nathan's been taken an hour away to the hospital,
Mm.
and hit. He was walking, he was a pedestrian, and he got thrown, hit his head on the cement, seizured,
Oh,
ended up in ICU. But
oh my
anyway, that
goodness.
was a trigger which put me
Yes.
down into my little black hole for a long time. But that's
Yeah.
life doesn't stop happening outside of our grief.
No,
That's
no, it definitely compounds upon itself. And if you're not taking steps to pull yourself out of your black hole, as you mention it, then it just
mhm.
keeps burying you with the sand and the dirt and all the stuff, and then it's harder to climb out.
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. Yeah.
And it's definitely it's pardon my language, it's definitely a fucking climb, let me tell you. It's a hard one for me.
Oh, it
Um,
is indescribable. It is the worst thing that can happen to a mother, right? I mean, my first brush with grief was when I lost my mom way back in 1997.
yeah.
And it was a whole different story altogether. I mean, she oh, I think
Nope,
our
keep talking.
internet
You're good.
went
You're
out.
good.
Maybe I'll just continue talking. And she was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, and um, she died at 60. And
Wow.
so to me at that time, uh, she was like, wow, that's too young to die. And so I went through my grief with that situation, and that was my first encounter with it. And I was a single mom at the time with two girls, and it's kind of like, you're going to go through it. You have to go back to work. I took 3 weeks off work, but it was a completely different scenario. I mean, yes, I loved my mom with every breath I took,
Yeah.
but I was able to muddle through that grief.
Yeah.
um, when it comes to losing your child, like I will grieve her until my heart stops beating,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
As,
it's definitely, yeah, I lost my father in 2005, and I can say it was absolute, and I was a daddy's girl. He died at the age of, I want to say 54. It's just like the month before his 55th birthday, super young. He had pancreatic pancreatic cancer.
Hmm.
And so that was, I mean, that was devastating. One of my first encounters, like with, uh, up close and personal loss. Like we
Right,
experience loss
right.
all the time, like a friend or a distant family member or a
Mm,
neighbor or something like that. And it's like, okay, the emotional ties aren't there. But when I lost my father, that was extremely hard for me.
yes.
And and then we lost aunts and great aunts and uncles and different things like that and family members. Um, but then when in 16 we lost our daughter, and like that was the first like boom, here it is, it's in your face, kind of
Yeah,
loss.
yeah.
Um, Fast forward to 2021, we lost our 4-year-old granddaughter as well, another freak
Oh
accident.
no.
Like, holy cow. So
Oh, so you can understand. Oh, well, you lost her.
it's
Thankfully for me, Nathan made it, but he's
right.
brain injury, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's insane the amount of loss that people go through, and
Yeah,
the various kinds. And I don't believe that there's like enough help out there for people. People aren't reaching because we're told not to. We're told to be strong, just muddle through, go back to work. Why are you taking so long? All these
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And it's for me one of the dumbest things because grief is like it will eat you from the inside out.
Oh, if you don't face it head on, and if you don't deal with those emotions, all of the emotions, the anger, the crying, the tears, the anxiety, the triggers, all of those things, if you don't deal with them head on and you try to, you know, push them away, they're going to come back, but they're going to come back with a vengeance. Like,
They will.
it's so true.
Absolutely.
And so working, grief, the work of grief is the most exhausting thing there
Yes.
is. It is so exhausting because when you have a grief day and when it's a horrible day and you just, find it hard to, every time you fall in that, I always say a black hole and you try to climb back out, if you picture if you were doing that physically, like it's just so tiring and you get out and you get your breath of fresh air and you think, okay, I made it.
Mhm.
And then it happens again and again and again. Exhausting.
It is exhausting.
You think you're not even going to make it. Well,
Some days.
there was a time in that first year when I didn't want to live. I told my husband, I can't wake up another day feeling like this. I can't do it, right? I just can't do it. And I never really, none of us really understand a lot of things in life, but like suicide, I never, really understood. And I still, of course, a lot to learn. But I was at a point in my life at one time, that first
Right.
year, where I did not want to die. I didn't want to leave this world. I didn't want to leave my family, but
But
I
you didn't
wanted
want to
to.
live either.
And so you're at that fork in the road, and it's like you don't even know what to do.
Right.
And
It's a decision. It's a decision that you're making at that point. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, which one?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
throw to
And I
me,
think
it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Sometimes that's what it feels like.
right, and you have to find that little bit of that little part of your brain that's still tapped into reality.
Right.
You have to go there and you have to find a reason to say, okay, I can't do this. And for me, I mean, I love all my family, but of course at that time Tristan, her little 2-year-old son, was was it. It's like, I
Right.
can't do this, Kristen. I can't do this. I mean, I
Right.
couldn't do it for any of the other family members, but because he's my only little piece of her left, I can't
Right.
do this. You know, Andrea wouldn't want me to do this to him. He needs to have a life with his nanny, right? And so
Mm.
that pulled me through. And it's pulled me through a lot of times too, right? But um, yeah,
I think
anyway,
that's very, very poignant is to find something when you're in the depths of the darkness,
I have to find a reason.
to find
And,
something to pull you through, whatever that is, just
and
use it and pull you through.
sometimes sometimes it's really hard to find that reason because the pain just takes over and you don't even care about your physical body anymore.
No.
It all becomes one. Actually, you don't really, I don't know, can't, there are no words sometimes to describe, right?
I call it the nothingness because nothing matters.
Yeah,
Nothing, your
good one.
health, your family, your
Yeah,
mental clarity, nothing matters. Moving, breathing, nothing matters at that point. So I call it the nothingness. And
I like that. That's good. That's a really
and
good.
it, and everyone is in it for a different amount of time. But I believe that like when a substantial loss hits you, like a child or a significant other or, a
Mm.
spouse, whatever it is, someone that you're extremely close to, that I think that nothingness hits and it takes everyone a different amount of time to get through that nothingness, to actually start feeling again, to start seeing again, like seeing color. I've heard people lose color, like they see in black and white after a substantial loss like that. And then eventually
True.
they start seeing color again.
Because they allow the little bits of life to re-enter as time
Mhm.
goes. And so, you know, I always, I think a good comparison for grief is the weather, right? There are those dark, dark days when, you just can't get up, you can't move, you can't do it, and they're so depressing. But, you know, then the clouds break and a little bit of the sun shines through and the sky changes. So I always remember that behind that dark sky, the sun is there
The
and
sun
it's
is
going to
shining.
shine,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Here's another one too. It's like even if it's raining, the sun can still be shining. So you can have all the emotions at once. You can
that's
be
right.
happy and sad at the same time. Like
Like the weather is such a mix of everything, we experience emotionally the mix of everything. You
we
can have
do.
We do, yeah. And it's amazing as you move along that you realize and you learn that happiness and the grief can cohabitate in your heart
Yes.
together, right?
And they
And
have to if you want to survive it.
well, the grief is because you love your child,
Mhm.
right? Or the other person that was so important in
Right.
your life. You grieve so hard because you love so hard, right?
Mhm.
And so really it's that love. So it has to take up some space
Yes.
because it's love. The reason we're grieving is because we love so
Right.
deeply.
And they
So
definitely, yeah.
I uh I move along in life and I just take Andrea with me everywhere, right? I talk to her and I'm, you know, it I believe my grief was on hold for the first 3 years because we had the trial for the accident, the trucker.
Oh,
It
yes.
did it didn't settle until December, 3 years later, 2014. So for 3 years, and because we live in a smaller town, it was a very high profile accident. It was always on the radio, always on the news. You're always hearing this guy's name. You're always hearing about this accident. They tell her name. I'm like, so I mean, I cried and there was tears, but then I didn't, I didn't know if they were for Andrea. And then
Right.
I had the relationship with Andrea's husband deteriorated, and we didn't see Tristan very often, and he was kind of disappearing from our life. And I said to my husband, if I can't see Tristan, I will die because he's my little piece of Andrea that's left.
Right.
There was a trial with that, and so we took legal action, and now today we have a wonderful relationship with him and he's 14. But at the time, in those first 3 years, we had both of those things, and then my other biological daughter with her grief, and she
Mhm.
just moved away, went to another town. We didn't talk for 6 months, so I felt like I lost her. So all of this outside conflict, outside of my loss for Andrea, I had
Mhm.
complicated grief and PTSD, and the tears flowed, and I don't know who it flowed for because I missed
Right.
my other daughter, right? So it wasn't focused on how it should have been. So I don't think I grieved properly in those first 3 years. And then after it was all settled, I was allowed, I didn't have to think about that anymore, and I could focus just on her.
Right.
And that took a lot of years. And then 9 years later, for years after that, I said, okay, one of these days I'm going to write a book. One of these days I'm going to write a book, right? And then I was out for a walk one day in 2021, and I came back and I told my husband, that's it. I'm going to write that book. I don't know how to do it. I don't know where to start, but you're going to help me. So I did, because being a nurse, and I'm aging myself, when I was nursing, there was not of a lot of computer
Right.
electronics. Everything we wrote when we saw our clients was handwritten,
Yeah.
right? So I wasn't that familiar with, okay, Microsoft, how do I get, he says, you just turn the computer on and you get a new page and you start typing. I said, well, you got to show me how to do that, because I didn't know, right?
Right.
But anyway, so with a little bit of guidance, I learned and I did my research and I moved myself along and I published my book, and it came out last fall. So I'm pretty
Congratulations.
pleased with myself. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, it's absolutely fascinating because when I wrote my book, because I had taken, so when we lost her in 16, I always wanted to help like mothers, especially stepmothers, with the loss of a child, right?
Mhm.
Because I don't think that they get enough support at all. Um, and I wanted to help. I wanted to do that.
Mhm.
Well, I didn't believe in I didn't give myself enough, like the credentials enough. So I didn't believe in myself that I could actually help someone after this. Like, who am I? What am I doing here? Like, blah, 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 blah. Totally
Yeah,
talking myself out of
absolutely.
it. And so I didn't do it. And I
Mhm.
waited and waited and waited. And I started building, sales funnels and doing things like that. And then 2021 came along and we lost our granddaughter. And
Mhm.
I was like, I can't do this other stuff anymore. It is unfulfilling to my soul. I need
Mhm.
to help mothers and grandmothers through grief. Like
Mhm.
this is my purpose. I feel it. And
Yeah.
so January of 22, I wrote my book and published it. And then February, I published another book. Um, but going through the process of writing that book,
Mhm.
man, the emotions that I released, like I
Oh,
can't even tell you. You would have thought that I had done nothing but lift 800-pound weights for 10 hours a day. Like I was
oh,
physically, mentally, and emotionally exhausted by the end of the day.
I completely relate, because I would just stick at it day after day, and my husband would go to work. He'd come home from lunch. I'd be there at the computer in my PJs, hadn't even brushed my teeth, nothing
Yep.
like that. It was just like, I
You
got to
don't eat, you don't
get
sleep. It's like,
everything that's
this is
inside
a
this.
mission.
Right.
Mission.
And, he'd come home at the end of the day by 4:30 or so. And I don't know what's for supper, but I have to go to bed because I can't stay awake
I'm
anymore.
exhausted. Yeah.
I'm done. But I think at the end of the day, when it's all over, like when it's finished, um, it definitely was therapeutic. It didn't feel it at the time, but I believe it's therapeutic. And now, even more so, I've started to, connect with the grief community, and like yourself, and then Tanya, and then, I'm doing a book signing. And since I've written this book, it's like these doors are opening, and I'm learning more about myself,
Yeah.
and this is what I want to do. It's becoming a passion. I want to help someone. My goal when I sat and wrote the book, I said, okay, if I can help just
Right. Just
one
one.
person who's suffering like I'm suffering, then I will have achieved my goal.
Yep.
But now the doors are opening more, and it's like I can't stop. I have it's like I'm getting a hunger for it. I
Yep.
have to get out there and I have to help these people, because I know that I have experiences, and I have some time behind me, and these people that are struggling. um I don't know, I might have a few words of encouragement to give,
Right.
right? So gotta help. And that's my mission, is to
Well,
just
good for
reach
you. It's very beautiful.
as I can. Mothers, not just mothers, parents, anybody who's experiencing this deep, deep pain.
Yeah.
right?
I agree. It's not talked about enough. We don't, I
No,
mean, we all know we're going to die. We all know we're going to die, but we have such a disassociation with it. It's, it's unreal to me.
yeah.
But then on the other side, like how to help people that are going through the grief, because you do love, that we're going to die at some point in time. We just don't expect, like our children to die before us. Like
Well,
that's
that's
the kicker.
totally out of the circle of life.
Yes.
That is not the way it's supposed to be. And that's one of
It's
the things that's so hard about it, right? And so many
right.
times when I've been upset and crying, I talked to Andrea. I'm like, Andrea, you should be here. You should be experiencing this, and it should be me gone. And yes, I would not want that pain on you, but you would, it's expected.
Yes,
It's
I
expected that a
agree.
parent, right? You don't expect to see your children die, you
No,
know? You just want to see them until you're old and gray and in a nursing home, right?
right.
But it's just not the way it should be.
I agree. What is the name of your book?
It is called The Road of Love and Hope. It's backwards, but
Oh no, it reads fine.
oh, does it? Oh, it's
Yes,
backwards for
because you have
kind of.
your thing on mirroring, so it'll mirror everything perfectly.
Oh,
It
okay.
just generally does that. I think Zoom
The
does.
Road
So
of
that
Love
way.
and Hope. And I just based it on the road that we're walking. It's an unwanted road, and it's
Right.
treacherous. And it's treacherous because of all the things we have to encounter with grief. As I said, the triggers, the shock, the trauma, the anxiety, the depression, and then how do you get through that? And so I talk about, my stories, my examples of how I've gotten through it, and just suggestions of things to do. So, and then how I think at the end of the day, it's all about honoring our child,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It is.
you know First of all, being at that fork in the road, you honor your child by living, because that's
Mm-hmm.
not something they wouldn't want you to do anything else but. And then that's the first step. And then once you have decided, I'm going to do this, I can do it, and you honor your child. Everything it does, it can go from the smaller things, like just thinking about them and looking at their pictures, or when their birthdays come up, you can honor them by multiple ways, or you can just, again, stay in bed and listen to the music that they love. So
Right.
it's all about honoring your child, right?
I agree.
And that's what's kept me going, because the love and bond that we have is eternal, and it's untouched by death. So
Right.
death can't touch that. And that's my motivation that keeps me going, right?
Yeah. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I also, another honor for her is when she was in grade 12, she wrote part of a school project. She wrote a children's book,
Oh,
and
nice.
I had that published.
Oh
And
my gosh, that's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. And it's called Spooky Meets a Friend,
Oh,
written by Andrea Watkins. And all the illustrations are hers.
oh, yeah, it's
Can't see?
blurry. No, it's
Yeah.
oh, there we
Ah,
go. Yep, go in.
anyway, so yeah, that's pretty exciting. And that's on Amazon too. So that's another honor to her. And who knows what's next? I don't know.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's beautiful though. I love it. Because I think that people need the ways, and when you're in the midst of like most people don't even realize they need this help until they're there. So
Yeah.
like someone who's not experienced a child loss or loss of a child, whatever, then they don't feel like any of this pertains to them, which is
Yeah.
fine. And they know like the basic stages of grief and whatever, but I don't think that people understand it until they get into that deeper grief, and realize that how the emotions take a toll on your mental and physical well-being.
Oh, yeah. Because,
And then the crappy, aftermath of having to figure out, and it's different for every person, having to figure out how to claw yourself out back to
mm,
a new way of life because you can't go backward, can't go back to
And
the past.
you have to accept that new person that
Yep.
you're evolving into, right? Because I'm
Right.
definitely not the same person now that I was before the
Oh
accident.
no.
Your life is always divided between the before when Andrea was here and after, right?
Correct.
But I am a completely different person. There's some better things about me, but there's some things that are not so good about me because of it. Because there's that little seed of anger that's in my
Yes.
heart, and it does not ever, it's like a little flicker, just like a little ember of
Hmm.
fire. And, as normal days go by, it's okay, you don't even know it's there. But then something can happen and a trigger, it triggers it. And then I am crazy angry and
That
I don't even
flame
know
turns
what.
into a bonfire,
Oh, it does. It does.
and then a
And
forest fire, and then it consumes
sometimes
you
I
for the
have to go
moment.
by myself somewhere and just scream and yell and get it all out because the anger is so fierce. And that's 12 years later. So that's not a good thing, but that's something I have to live with. So,
Well, I
and my
mean, it's not a bad thing. I have a something that I talk about on here quite a bit. It's called raging responsibly. And so that's part of the whole process is the anger and the rage because it feels so unjust, so unfair. It's like, why in the hell did this happen to me? Why did this happen to my family? Why am I the one that is now
right,
living without my child? Why is it, why? And so then the anger rages, but it's better like for the raging responsibly stuff. I think of it as going out by yourself and yelling and screaming and getting it out versus, taking it out on the person that you love
as
most
long as
that's
you deal
next to
with
you.
it in a healthy way.
Correct, correct. Yeah, I'm not saying go to the bar and get smashed and blackout drunk. I'm not saying, pick a fight with your coworkers and friends and family. I'm saying, find a smash house and go in there and beat the crap out of the inanimate objects, whatever. Or
Because at that moment when it has turned into a flame, it needs to get out.
it does.
And
It
so
does.
you need to just get it out and deal with it, but in a healthy way
Correct.
for yourself and everyone around you. So
Absolutely.
I say it's not a good thing because along with that, I lose patience for people. And when they talk about, although that's probably something different, when they talk about it gets the seed of anger going. They talk about, um, oh, my package didn't come today. It's, going to be on order for another week. I'm so frustrated. And then this happened and this happened. And it might be three things or one thing. And they're so frustrated and upset about it. And I'm thinking, at the end of the day, you have
Who
no
cares
idea.
about a damn package?
You have no idea. And you're upset about that. Like I'm sitting here without my daughter and
Right.
and you're frustrated about that. So like I have no patience for that. And I struggle and I try to be the nice person and
Right.
understanding. But inside you're just wanting to go, the anxiety, just starts to build but you have to somehow tap down on it until another time, right?
Right. And they have no idea either.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
one of
that's
those
the thing
things they
too.
haven't experienced it. So therefore, this is the frustrations that they're at,
Mhm.
which it's like, I wish I could go back to those frustrations.
Yeah, because so in that
Yeah.
way, then you've learned to be more tolerant. So that's one of the things that's nice about the changes in your life because you have all these changes, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the nicer things is that you can appreciate you don't sweat the small stuff.
No. No, I try to be forgiving and, let people, it's their life, it's their journey. I have my
Yeah.
own to live, and if that's their major frustrations for the day, I'm happy for them. They're not going on this journey.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And that's what I tell myself, right? And I mean, when you're with that person, I don't let them know what's happening.
Oh, absolutely not.
You're
Yeah,
being a friend, you're being an acquaintance, you're just appear on the outside like you're totally understanding, but inside you're like, what?
I can
Totally different.
understand that. I can understand that. Linda, it has been a blast chatting with you, and I'm so sorry about your daughter and your grandchild, and then your grandson. Was it your grandson that had also had an
Yeah,
accident?
yeah, the
Oh my
grandson.
gosh, there's so much compounding. Um, it's, I believe that this message is going to reach the people that it needs to reach and help those that need to help. Get your books on Amazon, your daughter's books on book on Amazon. I think it's going to be amazing and help so many people. What are like three ways or three things that you want to leave our audience with, like three thoughts?
Um, well, first of all, thinking back to that, initial first year when you're going through all the complete shock, um, know that you, first of all, are not alone. You are not alone. It is a very, very lonely road, and you feel so isolated inside. Nobody understands you, but there are people that understand.
Yeah.
There are people that have experienced the exact same pain and depth of pain that you are experiencing. So you are not alone. And we know what it's like to travel this road. Just not being alone, knowing that, and tapping into a grief community of people where you can talk to. That is one thing. Second, you're not going crazy.
Right.
You're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You are still normal, right? Because I remember, feeling I couldn't remember anything. Just the your brain is out. Your brain is in your body, but you're outside of your body. There's a total disconnection, and just know that you are still normal. What you are experiencing is normal. And the third thing is there's always hope for tomorrow. Even though tomorrow you may wake up and it's the same thing. Time, I always say time is not a healer, but it's a great teacher. It
Yes.
teaches us how to deal with these things. So you're not alone. You're not crazy. And there is hope.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for those beautiful words. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. And thank you everyone for listening and watching. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this special episode of Release. All the links plus a few extras are posted in the show notes below. And if you think someone you know could benefit by listening to this episode, please share it with them. And as always, keep going, keep being, keep doing. You are amazing.